Welcome back to this is the last shir of the season before Pesach. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Pesach Seder. So one of the main focal points is the Arba Bonim. Everybody has always learned about the Arba Bonim. So it says over there, we have the Chacham Maho Omer, Maho Eidus. The Chacham asks, what are these Eidus and Chukim? He goes into all the details. There's Eidus, there's Chukim and Mishpatim, 3 different categories, different types of mitzvahs. Asher Tziva Hashem Elokeinu Eschem. Afatehem Arlo. So what's your answer? Afad Kehilchas Pesach. Answer like the Hilchas Pesach. Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Afikomen. So the question is, what is this answer? What are we answering him? So, how does that answer? How does that answer the question of the Chacham?
Talk to me afterwards.
So the simple teretz, the simple explanation is that you explain to him from A to Z, because Ein Maftir Nachal Pesach Afikomen is the last Mishnah in Meseches Psochim. So it's sort of like saying, you answer him Kehilchas Pesach, you start at the beginning of Psochim, go all the way to the end of Psochim, and you get to Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Afikomen. That's a simple explanation of the answer to the Chacham. A deeper, a more substantial explanation of the answer to the Chacham, we find in Rav Sternbach in his Haggadah. Everybody knows that why is there a halach of Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Afikomen? What does that mean? Ein Maftir Nachar Pesach Afikomen. After you eat the Korban Pesach, which means the matzah, the maror, the Pesach, this is all 3 together. That's what we're supposed to eat. That's the central food of the Seder night. So there's a din. You don't eat the Korban Pesach ela ala soiva. You have to be already basically full when you eat the Korban Pesach. So you have the Korban Chagiga. This is all established during the time when they had the Korbanis. So they had the Korban Chagiga. So you fill yourself up on the steak of the Korban Chagiga, and then at the end you have dessert. You have the Korban Pesach, the matzah. Well, that's the question whether the matzah more is together. That's Hillel. That's kacho Hillel. Make a sandwich. But the end when you after you're all finished eating, you eat the Korban Pesach ala soiva, and you're not allowed to eat anything after the Korban Pesach, which what we do. After we finish the matzah, we eat a afikomen, which is, according to the Rashbam, it's a zecher to the Korban Pesach that we ate at the end of the meal. And you're not allowed to have dessert after that. You have to have dessert before that. Ein maftirin, meaning dessert, right? The afikomen really means dessert. Ein maftirin achar Pesach. Afikomen, the real word of afikomen means dessert. You don't have dessert after the Korban Pesach, which we call the afikomen, but you don't have dessert after what we call the afikomen, which is the end of the meal, which is like the Korban Pesach at the end of the meal. Why is that? Because the Chazal want shebe'inan sheyishar tama Pesach bepiv le'acher kach. We want the whole night, the taste of the Korban Pesach, or today, by us, the taste of the matzah should remain in your mouth the whole night. That's the seder of the Leil Pesach. The kavana. So the kavana of Ein Maftirin is. Oh, now what is this din? So
you said the taste of matzah, but then you said isn't it taste of meat all night?
Well, we don't have the Korban Pesach. So today it's the taste of the matzah.
I'm saying this year when we will have Korban Pesach, it's the end of the meat.
Be'ez Hashem, this year when we'll have the Korban Pesach, the Korban Pesach, it'll mean the taste of the meat the whole night. Yeah.
And lafa matzahs, Pesach Shabbat.
It doesn't cost 250 shekel a kilo either.
No, they have to redo all the matzah bakeries. It's going to cost a lot.
That's cheap.
So, anyway.
That's like money. That's really cheap.
Well,
You get 400, 500 shekel a kilo.
So Rav Sternbach says, this is not a specific din. This is not a specific din of we want the taste of the matzah, the taste of the Korban Pesach, the taste of the matzah, the afikomen to remain in your mouth the whole night. It's a din that we want the concepts, the limud, the lessons that we learned from the Seder night, the lessons that we learned from the matzah should remain with you after this night until the morning and even for the whole year. We have many, many mitzvahs associated with Korban Pesach. What is the Chacham asking? What is this Ben Chacham asking? What are all these mitzvahs? So he's asking a very, very deep question. We have many, many, many mitzvahs, which are all Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. We have everything on the Seder night. You have to eat the matzah and the maror and the Haggadah, But you also have Tefillin is Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Shabbos.
It's not Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. We say Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, but that's the question. How is it Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim? I want to put Shabbos on the side. You have pigeon bechor. Pigeon bechor is Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then you have in the middle of the Haggadah, so we talk about the machlokes, the Chachamim and Ben Zoma, right? There's another mitzvah of Zechiras Yetzias Mitzrayim every day. In the morning we say, we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every morning in Shacharis. And the question is whether you mention it at night also. So that's the machlokes, the Chachamim and Ben Zoma, whether we mention it at night, and it's a shayla in halacha, whether it is a shayla in halacha, is that diaraisa? The morning is diaraisa, and the shayla is at night by Ma'ariv, when we also mention in Kriya Shema, the pasuk about Yetzias Mitzrayim in the third parsha. So is that also a diaraisa dikadin? That's the machlokes Ben Zoma and the Chachamim. Is the pasuk talking about Leilos, every night you're supposed to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, or Beleilos, meaning Losad Lavoi, in the time of the Mashiach, we're going to continue mentioning Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's different shayla, what's going on in the Haggadah over there. So we see so many dinim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So the Chacham is asking a very, very crucial question. It's a very crucial question. So I'll phrase it the way the chinuch sort of answers it in a way. Every day at the end of davening, so we say, Ratza Kadosh Baruch Hu, Ratza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zachus Yisrael, L'fikach Hirbelhem Torah Mitzvahs. That's what we say at the end of Ein Kelokenu. Ratza Kadosh Baruch Hu L'Zachus Yisrael, L'fikach Hirbelhem Torah Mitzvahs. That's why we have so many mitzvahs. So there's a famous Maisa, I always say I'm going to have to change my bar mitzvah drasha, right? So there was a little boy in the cheder. So when he heard this, at the end of Makkas, they have that Mishnah, Ratzu Kodesh Baruch Hu L'Zachus Yisrael. So he asked the question, Rebbe, I understand, but why so many? Why so many? Couldn't he, a little bit less? He wants some zakas, but why so many? The Chacham is asking, why so many? You can have one or two mentions of Yetzias Mitzrayim, one or two symbols of Yetzias Mitzrayim at the Haggadah, at the Seder, but why so many? The whole Seder night full of this is a Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, this is Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim, and during the year we have Zeichel Yetzias. How many times we have to do a Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim? Every day we have to do a Zeichel Yetzias. Why so many? That's the question of the Chacham. Why so many? So we answer him, what does that mean? That we want it to remain with you. There's a very important chinuch. He explains. It's very interesting. He asked a question. Why you're not allowed to break the bones of the Korban Pesach? That's one of the, we don't have Korban Pesach, so we don't even think about it. But that's what it's eaten ala soiva, that you're already full. If you would eat at the beginning of the meal, what do you do at the beginning of the meal? Right? You finish up your chicken, and then then you're talking and singing the Zmiris, and you're still a little hungry, so you start munching on the bones, right? You start munching on. I don't know. Most people start munching on the bones. Yeah, they're munching on the bones, right? And that's what a person does when he's hungry. So the Chazal say you have to act like Ben Chayrin, a prince, a prince, right? The queen, right? The queen. You don't chew on the bones at a state dinner, at a royal dinner. The
king might, yeah, but the queen.
But it's not etiquette, right? A rich man doesn't need to munch on the bones. Munching on the bones.
I could see Trump doing it.
I don't think he would actually.
A person who is a mechubadik person, he's royalty. He doesn't munch on the bones because he has so much better for it. It's not a derech of cherus. So the Chazal, the Torah did not want you to break the bones because that's a simon of anius, of poverty. A impoverished person even munches on the bones. But a cherus, a rich person, a free man, doesn't munch on bones, so therefore you're not allowed to break the bones of the Korban Pesach. That's one reason they say it's eaten ala soiva, so that you don't come to have to break the bones because you're still hungry. Why is that? So the Chinuch says we have to do actions. We have to do maisim at the Seder, which are showing that we are a Maila Gedola, that's Oleno. At that time, we are B'nai Chayrin. That's why we lean, right? We have to act like, in those days, in the times of the Romans, they actually leaned on couches. They had couches, special eating couches, and they leaned and they reclined. So we recline at the Seder because we have to act like derech cheres. So we have to show that we are free men. And because of the Maisa, and it influences, why is this? Because our Maisim influence our thoughts. It gets nikva b'nafshenu, it gets drilled in to our, internalized into our psyche, this davar li'olam. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzvah us to do so many Maisim at the Seder. And during the year, we have to constantly mention, have to do so many mitzvahs, which are Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim, Tefillin. If you say the Yehi Ratzon, if the Hinni Mechaven at the beginning of Tefillin, so it talks about Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim, it's Roya Natuya, it's the hand and right. It's Zeichel is Roya Natuya. That's why we wear Tefillin. And Pidyon Ben is also because of the Bechor. He was safe in Mitzrayim by the Makas Bechiris. So that's why we do Pidyon Bechor. So all these things are Zeichel Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why is that? So he says a very important principle. Adam nifal lefi puloisov. A person he's activated. He internalizes. He is influenced according to his actions. The things that you're constantly doing, these are the things that influence you, and you internalize your actions more than thinking about it. You don't have to philosophize. You don't have to philosophize and think, and it's a good idea. Yidden are very, very big on going into the depth, the analysis of everything. But the action is more important. Because through the actions, it internalizes the ideas, the limud, the lessons that we're supposed to be taking from the different mitzvahs that we have. And therefore, Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu l'zachos Yisrael, l'fikach her b'lehem Torah mitzvahs, in order that we should constantly be doing things which internalize and the lessons are internalized in us forever, and it changes the person. The more he does things, it changes the person just by, I call it by osmosis. It just goes in. And that's the Riboy mitzvahs, and he says specifically, the Chinuch says, all the Riboy mitzvahs of Zechiris Nisei Mitzrayim, they're an Amud Godel b'Torah Seinu. They are a major factor, major yesod, a major column in our Torah. Barabos eskeinu behem. The more that we do these things, it's nispayel el hadavar. It influences us. It internalizes us, like we discussed. So the question is, that's very good, very good. But what's the lesson that we're internalizing from all this? Okay, now we're doing things to internalize Zeichel Yetzias Mitzrayim. What is the lesson? What is the concept that we do want to internalize? We find another definition of Seder night. Seder night Pesach is Zman Cheruseinu, but it's also called Leil Shimurim. It's also called Leil Shimurim. Now, what does it mean, Leil Shimurim? So everybody knows that it's called Leil Shimurim. It's the night when we are protected. And in the old days when I was growing up, you don't lock the door because we're protected. We don't say Krishma. We say a minimum amount of Krishma Alamita. We don't say all the other psukim which are Shmira from the Mazikim. We're not afraid of damages. It's a layer where we are guarded from by a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Therefore, in the old days, they used to not lock the door. I don't know if I would advise it in today's world. Well, if you live on the 13th floor, maybe you can get away with it. But if you live on ground floor like me, I'm a little bit nervous about that. You don't know who's roaming around outside.
You have to have what the steel is, yeah? Right, we're just saying this to be recorded, right?
Huh?
You're just saying this because you're recorded, right?
Yeah. What floor do you live? What's the address? Ground floor, what's the address?
So
I never used to lock the door until my wife found out I locked the door at night.
Anyway, but that's the common the Pashut concept of Leil Shimurim. That's the Pashut concept of Leil Shimurim. But there's the Ramban has a different definition of Leil Shimurim. It says something totally different. It's a night which is Shomor for Klal Yisrael. The Klal Yisrael has to guard this night L'Doirei Seichem. Leil Shimurim L'Doirei Seichem. It's a night that we have to guard it. It's Shimurim L'Kol B'nei Yisrael L'Doirosim. The Klal Yisrael has a special mitzvah of being Shomer this night. How are we Shomer this night? By eating the Korban Pesach and mentioning Zechiris Mitzrayim, giving Hoidah and Hallel to Kodesh Baruch Hu, right? By singing Hallel, right? Ushmarte Esachuka, and this is repeated. It's not only Leil Shimurim, but it's repeated many times in Torah. Ushmarte Esachuka Hazois, Shomer es Chodesh Ha'aviv. So we see the language, the language the Torah is accenting. It's a Leil Shimurim. It's a night that the Yidden have to keep all the mitzvahs of this night, not to violate them. Make sure you eat the Korban Pesach. That's what the Torah says.
So then it comes back to the same question. What for?
Right. Same question, right? So there's something about Leil Pesach. We don't find this by other mitzvahs. Why is Leil Pesach, why is the avoda of Pesach any different than the other yontif? It doesn't say Shomer es a lulav. It doesn't say Shomer es a shofar. By other Yom Tovim, it doesn't say Shomer by Chag HaShavuos. There's no only by Pesach is there a din of Shomer. I want to interject over here, and I'm going to get to it soon. There is another time when it does say Shomer, Shabbos. Shabbos Yom Shabbos L'Kadshay. So Shabbos also has the language of Shamor. We'll have to see if is the same as Pesach or different than Pesach. That's the question. There's a Maril. I don't know if you know who the Maril is. The Maril lived in the 1400s, in the late 1400s. He was the end of the Rishonim, and many of the Ashkenazi minhagim are based on the writings of the Maril.
It's quoted in the Ramah. I think he's one of the most quoted persons in the entire Ramah.
Yeah, one of the most quoted persons in the Ramah, right? You say Ramah, I say Ramah. Ramah in Ashkenazi language, sprach, the jargon. The Yad Ramah is with a hey. It's the Yad Ramah is a different rishon than the Ramah with an aleph. The Ramah in the Shulchan Aruch, right? I understand, but that's in the Ashkenazi pronunciation. So we say the Ramah. But he's a
Maril, yeah.
Rechol Maril. Oh. The Maril asks a question. It's very similar to a Gemara in Gittin. He asks a question. It says in the pasuk, "Ashrei Adam Mefachei Tamid." Ashrei Adam. It's good to be afraid. It's good to be afraid. So the Maril asks a question. What do you mean it's good to be afraid? We have another pasuk, Mishmur Ra Lo Yira. You're not supposed to be afraid. So it's a stira. One pasuk says in Mishlei, it's good to be afraid. Another pasuk says in Tehillim, don't be afraid. So he says, it's good to be afraid, not about physical danger. You should not be afraid of physical danger. You should have betochen and not be afraid of physical danger. You should be afraid, tamid, on devar mitzvahs. Are you doing the devar mitzvah properly? He says, Kach kol adam should be chorid be'em alakayim maimer chachamim, that whatever the chachamim, the chazal were misakin in mitzvahs, then he says very interesting things. Which mitzvahs? He should have said all mitzvahs. You should be afraid and make sure that you're fulfilling all the mitzvahs properly. He then goes along and he specifies mitzvahs haseder v'haggadah. That's where it says you should be afraid. So he's explaining the word shomor. Shomer we should shomer it to make sure that we fulfill the obligations, like the Ramban says, we fulfill the obligations of the night of Pesach. He says you should be afraid that you're not doing it right, and be careful, very, very careful. I'm not telling you have to be necessarily like a brisker, but you see many people, they're very, very careful about all the mitzvahs and how to do it right, to make sure you eat a kazayas of matzah, and what's the shear of moror? What is moror? This is too sweet. I want something more bitter.
We don't know.
Right.
The three things that are mentioned in Gemara.
Yeah.
Chocolate, we don't know.
Yeah.
Chocolate? 100% chocolate, we don't
Right.
know.
The Gemara mentions bitter chocolate. That's right.
We don't know,
Sure.
Rebbe, we don't know.
Never heard of chocolate. That was says it in the morning.
It's a special chocolate.
100% bitter, no sugar.
Okay. Anyway, but you should be careful to be mekayim all the mitzvahs, to make sure you're leaning properly, and we follow the seder, and you wash at the right time, and you have the right kabbanish, the pachas mikazayis of the karpas, all the different things. Do the hilchas seder properly. Lo yehei davar kal be'einav, even if kama devarim yesh b'seh shenir be'einei adam she'ein hakapeda behem. Even if it looks like this, what's the difference? What's the big deal? This side's karpas, that side karpas. There's different types. Minhagim of karpas is celery, or we used to eat potatoes. You eat parsley. What's the difference? No, follow the minhagim according to your minhag, and follow it with a kapeda, even though it looks like there's no kapeda. L'kayim she'ein shum davar reik behem. Nothing. It's not empty. It's there for a reason. Everything that we have in the Seder is there for a reason. That's the concept of Ashrei Adam B'fachei Tamid.
Why is that? Why you have to be more makbid on those mitzvot than other mitzvot? What's special about it?
That's the original question. We still haven't gotten there, but we see that there is something special about this night that we have to be careful about? Why is this night so important that we have to be careful? And like the Chinuch says, we're careful about doing so many misses on this night to integrate within ourselves, to internalize a lesson. What is the lesson that we're here to internalize? There's a very important, there's a mitzvah, there's a halacha that you have to light Shabbos candles, right? You have to light Shabbos candles, and you have to have wine for Kiddush. And there's another mitzvah, you have to have, let's say, Ner Chanukah. Let's say Friday night, Ner Chanukah falls out on Friday night. Imagine, it's hard for us to imagine, but they used to have the poverty one time poverty was so much, so terrible, the poverty, that try to imagine a person, he doesn't have money, he can only buy either a Ner Chanukah, one candle, Ner Chanukah, either Ner Chanukah or a candle for his house. He can only buy one. He doesn't have enough money for two. Which comes first? The Gemara, so along comes Rava, and the Rava says, that's Pshita, Shalom Bayis. The Ner in the house is more important, because that's Shalom Bayis. Shalom Bayis overrides everything. Ner Beis of a Kiddush Hayom. Right? If you have the candles or wine, you don't have enough money for both, either candles or wine. You can't afford the wine. Ner Beis Adif. That's Rava. Rava said that's Pashit. Shalom Bayis. So now Rava asked a very important question. What about, not Ner Shabbos, what about Ner Chanukah or wine for Kiddush? He doesn't have money for both. Either he could buy a candle for Hanukkah, or he can buy enough wine to make Kiddush on. Just half a bottle, a quarter of a bottle of wine to make Kiddush on, right? That's all he can afford. One candle or Kiddush Hayom. Do we say Kiddush Hayom is Adif? That Kiddush Hayom, making Kiddush on Shabbos is Adif, is preferable, because Tadr, there's a rule of Tadr ve'eno Tadr, Tadr Adif. Something which is frequent overrides other mitzvahs which are infrequent. That's a rule in Shas. So maybe Kiddush Hayom is Tadr, therefore it overrides the Ner Chanukah, therefore it's Adif, right? Or maybe not. Let's say the other side. Maybe Ner Chanukah is Adif because of Pirsumi Nisa, right? You have a din of Pirsumi Nisa, which is you don't have by Kiddush Hayom. Kiddush Hayom, there's no din of Pirsumi Nisa, but by Ner Chanukah, it's right. Now we do it in Rishalayim, but it used to be everywhere in Babel. Everything a Pesach Beso. Today, Baruch Hashem, it came back into Eretz Yisrael, and now you see by Pesach Beso, the doors of all the houses, you have all the, but I'm not going into the halacha, the window, the Pesach Beso, but the original takana was Pesach Beso. Pesach Beso, they put it outside for Pirsumi Nisa. After he asked the question, so he answered it, Ner Chanukah is Adif. Ner Chanukah is Adif because of Pirsumi Nisa. So we see that Ner Chanukah, which is Pirsumi Nisa, overrides Kiddush Hayom, Shabbos, because there's Pirsumi Nisa by Ner Chanukah. The Gemara, so the Rambam mentions we have the same halacha by Daled Koises. Let's say I don't know what's the shaykh. I mean, if you we have a similar halacha by Daled Koises. If a person can't afford Daled Koises, he's going to make Kiddush on bread. He can't afford wine. It used to be they couldn't afford wine. Wine was very expensive. They couldn't find kosher wine. So there's a halacha that you can make Kiddush on your chalas, right? So if you don't have wine. If a person doesn't have money for Daled Koises, it says, Shulchan Aruch, an ani misparnis min tzedakah. It says, Yimkor malbusho, sell a piece of clothing or borrow or rent yourself out, take a fast job, take a night job the night before, all right? Or go knocking on doors in order to have wine for Daled Koisos. Every ani is obligated to have, that's how important it is. Why? Because of Pirsumi Nisa. Pesach is Pirsumi Nisa. The whole Agad is Pirsumi Nisa. You have to, it's Gavaldik Inyan. So Ner Chanukah and Daled, where do we know? So the Maggid Mishnah says on the Rambam, that from this din of Daled Koisos, that even every ani has to have Daled Koisos. It's so important because of Pirsumi Nisa. And if we made a Kal V'chomer, that's right. Now it's also D'Rabbanan, but it's a din D'Rabbanan. We made a Kal V'chomer over to Ner Chanukah. So we learn Ner Chanukah from the din of Daled Koisos. Madoch by Daled Koisos, you have to do it also by even a bigger Pirsumi Nisa. You put it outside the door. Daled Koisos is inside your house. Pirsumi Nisa of Ner Chanukah, Kal V'chomer, you have Pirsumi Nisa by Ner Chanukah. Rabbi Isai, I don't understand. We said Shabbos also is Shamor. So why doesn't if Shabbos also has a din of Shamor is Yom Shabbos the Kadshoy, so it should be on an equal footing as Daled Koisos. It should be on an equal footing as Daled Koisos, and we find that it's lower because of the Pirsumi Nisa of Daled Koisos. What are we being mefarsim by Daled Koisos? We're being mefarsim the nes of Yetzias Mitzrayim. There's something about the nes of Yetzias Mitzrayim that we have to be mefarsim. It's called Pirsumei Nisa, just like Chanukah is the din of Pirsumei Nisa. So we are expressing the whole Pesach, the night, the Leil Pesach, the whole Agada, the Seder. Everything is expressing all the nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim. Which was a bigger nes? Yetzias Mitzrayim or Brias HaOlam? L'chayra, Brias HaOlam. The Avni Nezer asked this question. The famous Avni Nezer asked this question. Which is a bigger nes? Yetzias Mitzrayim or Brias HaOlam? It's Yesh Me'ayin. It's Yesh Me'ayin. That's a bigger nes, Yesh Me'ayin. Something from nothing.
Yeah, but the opposite. Yetzias Mitzrayim was going against all the Bria.
But it's based on the fact that there is a Bria. Right, first you have to have Brias HaOlam. If you don't have Brias HaOlam, you don't have Yetzias Mitzrayim. Yetzias Mitzrayim is taking the Olam that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made, and he's still in control of it. He could turn the water into dam. He could bring the frogs out of the mud. He controls the winds with the locusts.
Going against the rules that he set up.
Good, but Yesh Me'ayin, he set up the rules, is more fundamental than breaking the rules. He set up the rules. And Yesh Me'ayin. We don't have a concept of creating something from nothing. We can create something from something. I can make this table if I have, well, this is not wood. This is probably plastic, some sort of artificial. Maybe there's wood inside and it's covered with formica. Whatever it is, right? But you take different pieces of wood or different pieces of plastic, like my chair. Right? And you put them together. But first you have to have the pieces. You have to have the wood. So all I'm doing is reassembling something that I already have. But to take nothing and go abracadabra. What's abracadabra? I always say abracadabra. They always think, where did this word abracadabra come?
Abracadabra.
Right? I created with my mouth.
Harry Houdini's father was a big Talmud Chacham in Hungary.
Right. Abracadabra. I created Bria with Dibur. Abracadabra is Bria with Dibur. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did. So, abracadabra. Yeah. So to do something from nothing, even when you take the rabbit out of your hat, right? The guy takes the rabbit out of his hat. It's not Yesh Me'ayin. It was there. It was a false bottom. There was a false.
I know a magician.
Everybody. Right? You know a magician that we could actually do it. No, there's no such thing. Right? There's always there. The rabbit was there in the hat beforehand. Right? So making Kiddush on Shabbos, stating that we believe Hashem created the world in 6 days and He rested on Shabbos. That's the whole meaning of Shabbos. That's a bigger, and that's a less inyan of what's Ner Chanukah. So Ner Chanukah. So there was a miracle. Rambad Ma'atim, Giborim Biad Chaloshim. That's not such a big miracle compared to Yesh Me'ayin, Bria Yesh Me'ayin, and even Pesach, like we just explained, right? L'chayra, the Bria Sa'olim is a bigger nest than the Yetzias Mitzrayim. Shabbos is the Eidus. That's why we say Vayachulu in 3 times, and you have to find somebody to say it with, because it's a testimony to 2 witnesses. You have to have 2 witnesses. That's why it's an Eidus. It's an Eidus. It's a testimony that a Kodesh Baruch Hu brought the world into being Yesh Me'ayin on Shabbos, and that's. People always say we know that there's always non-believers. They say there's no creator, right? They call it the Big Bang Theory. They have the Big Bang Theory. So Big Bang Theory. So it's a Big Bang Theory. You know, if you take 2 cars and they collide, they go bang, but it doesn't become a limousine.
Because it's not a big bang.
No. Bang to bang. You know, I don't know, maybe.
There's a 0.0001.
Try that, maybe. We gotta try it.
It's ridiculous. It's totally and absolutely ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. If you have a junkyard and you have metal, plastic, wires, and also some scraps, right? And it sits there for 300,000 years, and 100 tornadoes come into that junkyard, you're not gonna come back after 100,000 years and see a Boeing 747.
But if you wait another few millions of years,
You see a Boeing
My
747.
reconstructionist rabbi in Colorado, Rabbi Christina Goyman, that's my minhag I grew up with, so I'm stuck.
What's the middle?
Minhagim like that, you're allowed to break.
Okay.
Anyway, we'll get to it.
gotta wait.
So what is the so the Avnei Nezer?
Wait a million years to.
Well, actually,
The Avnei Nezer answers yes. It's a tremendous chiddush.
There is a big bang.
You're saying his soup is a bang?
The
big bang.
It's a big bang of soup.
I don't know what he put in there, but it's something happened.
So the Avnei Nezer answers yes. Shabbos is a tremendous chiddush. Brias ha'olam yesh me'ayin is a tremendous chiddush, and it's even bigger than Yetzias Mitzrayim. But and it's bigger than Chanukah for sure. The difference is Leil Pesach. There's an idea to be mefarsem the nest to others. A halacha of that that the Torah wants us to publicize this nest. That's why it made this night of Leil Seder. Haggadah to levonecha, you have to tell it over to your children. So something with a pirsum anes. Chanukah is pirsum anes. Put the ner Chanukah on your door, outside your door. Let everybody see it. And even though you don't go outside and make a seder, but you Haggadah to levonecha, you have to be mefarsum to your family and your guests and whoever, you have 25 people at your table, halavai, right? However big your family is, you have everybody there. You're mefarsim the nest to everybody to ingrain it.
From when does the nest became the story? The story is the.
It was a nest. Yetzias Mitzrayim.
Yeah, but
Yetzias
it's not a
Mitzrayim.
nest.
It sure was. But the Dam Svardeya.
Of course it was a nest, but the nest is not.
Oh, wait, one second. Let me finish. Okay. So there's an Orchos Chaim. Let me get to the Orchos Chaim. The Orchos Chaim of the Rush. Everybody knows who the Rush was, right? The Rush, the great Rush. We have the Rush in the back of the Gemara. We have Rush on the Torah. We have the Rush, the Piskei Rush. Tais is a Rush. We have Rush. He talks about Anoiche, the Aseres Adibros. In the Aseres Adib, the Rush, Rabbeinu Usher. He ran away. He was Talmud of the Ram Rutenberg in Germany. And then when the government went after him because he was a Talmud of the Ram Rottenberg, who was a political prisoner. So therefore he had to run away to Spain. He became the Rav Roshi of Spain, and that's when he's the father of the Torah, and the Torah is the precursor of the Shulchan Aruch. So Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hotzeisicha Me'eretz Mitzrayim. That's the beginning of the Aseres HaDibros. So the Rosh explains how do we learn this pasuk. This pasuk is the basis of Amunah. It's teaching you Livtoyach B'Hashem. You have to trust in Hashem, b'chol levavecha, trust in Hashem with your wholeheartedly, ulahamin b'hashgacha pratis, and believe in Hashgacha pratis. That's what we're learning out from Anochi Hashem Elokecha she'otzeisicha mi'eretz Mitzrayim. And then he says, it's a difficult statement to understand. Ubezeh tekayim b'lvavcha hayichud hashalem. Why is this a yichud hashalem? We have to explain that. Bahamin ki ein of mishotetus b'kol haaretz. HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees everything. At one time they weren't able to have that concept that the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are floating around everywhere. But today in our world of security cameras in every nook and cranny, and you got satellite cameras, and you got the listening, and you have eavesdropping and phone tapping, and they have GPS. I mean, they're watching you wherever you are. Ein of Meshaitis is Pekola Aretz. And now it's easier for us to have the concept HaKadosh Baruch Hu is watching. His eyes are all over the place. Ein of Al Kol Dark Ayish. And not only that, but he's X-ray. He's Boichen Lev V'Chayker Kloyas. He can go into your guts and understand what you're thinking and what you're feeling. That's the Hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then he says, Ki misha eino ma'imim b'asher hotzeisicha mi'eretz Mitzrayim. If you don't believe in Yetzias Mitzrayim, then ba'anochi Hashem Elokecha, you don't believe. And his yichud is not shalem. What does that mean? What does that mean? So the Rosh, is not enough to believe that there's a Borei Olam. Even the Goyim believe that there's a Borei Olam. There's two levels of Amunah. There's a Amunah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and now he created the world. It goes by itself. That's called nature. Nature is now independent. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world, and now he went up. He's taking a vacation in Florida. He's in Hawaii, but nature is independent. He created it. Now it goes by itself. No, we have to believe in Hashgacha Pratis. In Hashgacha Pratis.
You have to believe in Hashgacha.
Yes. And he says, if you don't, you're missing out on the Yichud HaShalem. And then he says, a very, very, very interesting Nakuda. Kizeh skulas Yisrael al kol ha'amim. That's the yesod of kol ha'Torah kula, is to believe in a Hashgacha Pratis. And that's the Nakuda of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's the Nakuda of Yetzias Mitzrayim. If you look at the pasuk, Anochi Hashem Elokecha Asher Hotzeisicha Mi'eretz Mitzrayim, it's got two parts. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. That's believing in the Rebbeinu Shalom. I believe in the Rebbeinu Shalom. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Believe in me. That's where we see the mitzvah of Amunah. But it doesn't stop there. Asher hotzeisicha mi'eretz Mitzrayim. I took you out of Mitzrayim. How did I take you out of Mitzrayim? So in Mitzrayim, we saw a full Hashgacha Pratis. We saw that he controlled nature. He turned water into dam. So I saw very, very, very nice. It says in the pasuk, and all the fish in the Nile died. Why did it have to tell me that? Of course, all the fish in the Nile died. If it turned into dam, all the fish in the Nile died. Because many people think it just was a change in the color of the water. He made the water look like dam. So the pasuk has to say that's not what happened. Dam is a different chemical makeup than water. He changed the chemical makeup of the water. It instantaneously became dam, and therefore fish, if they'd only changed the color of the water, the fish could have continued living. The fish died. It was a proof that the water had changed into dam, into blood. He brought frogs out of there weren't millions of frogs in the Nile River and all over the place. All of a sudden he created out of the mud frogs. They came from nowhere. He controlled the winds. He brought the locusts. He controlled darkness. He made night into day into night. And not only that, he had people frozen. The night was so thick, people got frozen in their seats, or frozen standing. They were frozen in their place. So Kosh Baruch Hu was controlling everything. And then Makas B'chayros, B'chlal. How do you know who's a B'chor and who's not a B'chor? Even the Malachim didn't know who was, right? The Kosh Baruch Hu Voda Ba'atzmo had to discern between the child who's not, you have a firstborn and he's not the B'chor because she was messing around beforehand, right? With somebody else. And there was another guy, a third kid, who was the B'chor because she was messing around afterwards. So Kosh Baruch Hu knew all that, and it became clear that Kosh Baruch Hu was able to understand everything. And then Kriyas Yamsuf B'chlal, at the same time that the Yam is splitting for the Klal Yisrael, and they're going through, and it's crashing down on the Mitzrim, and not only that, but it was Mida Keneged Mida. Yisro says, Ba'asher Zodu Aleim. He believed, he saw, he heard, and he believed Asher Zodu. He understood this. He was part of the parts of what does it say? Asher Zodu Aleim. He understood all the plots that the Mitzrim had made to get rid of the Jews, because he was part of one of the inner cabinet of Paro before he ran away.
Exterminate the Jews, right? Or get rid of the Jews?
Exterminate the Jews. Exterminate the Jews. He wanted to exterminate the Jews. He was looking for a way to do it. And he had all sorts of plans and secrets, and many of them didn't, but he knew, and he knew that everybody saw how everybody got Mida Keneged Mida. When at the Yam Suf, they saw, that's the Egyptian who hit me, and he's getting it now. The Egyptian who was the Russia, he was going up and down, like, bobbling, like, a piece of straw, his death was drawn out. Egyptian wasn't so bad, so he went straight down to the bottom. He drowned right away. They saw in everything, all the Eser Makas, you go through the Stipler, all the Eser Makas was Mida Keneged Mida of all the terrible things that they had done to the Jews. And the Jews were watching this.
Where you see more in the Nisim or Mido Keneged Mido?
Huh?
Punishment that was Mido Keneged Mido. You see it in
That by the dam, they wanted to throw,
not in the Mitzvah. I say...
other places.
And other...
Almost everywhere.
This is a klal. Now, I can't go into this now, but that's a klal that Kodesh Baruch Hu judges Mida Keneged Mida. The way a person does an Aveira, he's going to get his just desserts in the same way, in the same fashion, in a similar fashion. Something similar will happen to him, right? If something bad happens to you, so look back. This is an Arizal. Look back in your past. You did the same thing. If somebody did something bad to you, look in your past.
That applies just to Jews.
To Jews.
Not to Goyim.
No, Goyim is also Mida Keneged Mida.
But that takes a long...
Okay, I'm not going into that.
They call it karma.
Right?
The Goyim have a different equation.
So Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Nisim of Yetzias Mitzrayim showed us Hashgacha Pratis. And this is the lesson, and this is the to understand our original question, what is the lesson we're supposed to be taking out of the Leil Seder, is Hashgacha Pratis. That the Leil Seder, the Yetzias Mitzrayim, is more than Brias HaOlam. Brias HaOlam, and Brias HaOlam is something, if you're not a Shoita, the Rabbi Chanan, I can't go into Rabbi Chanan, he's got a whole mimer on Amunah, I'm running out of time. But Rabbi Chanan says, anybody who's not a Shoita can understand Brias HaOlam. There has to be a Brias HaOlam. Especially, you look at today. I mean, the science, they've shown that the science is so, undividable complexity. I mean, the brias that you have a person, or you have all the organs, all the animals, and all the creatures. They're formed, so it can't be through evolution because you have so many different factors that they all have to work together. And if you're missing any one of them, the whole thing falls apart, like the famous mousetrap. If you're missing the spring, then the mousetrap is totally useless. You have to have a spring with a latch and a clasp and a board to hold the spring. And if you're missing any one of those things, so irreducible, that's it, irreducible complexity.
Unlimited number of universes.
It's ridiculous. It's just pushing the question back further. Multiverse is just pushing the question. That's what they say. It's ridiculous. Just pushing it back further because it's just, see, a billion, trillion, quadrillion times. Just pushing it back further. But once we see in our, but you see it has to be intelligent design. There has to be intelligent design. There's an organization in Seattle. They have top scientists, and they have proven DNA. DNA will it just proves everything because it's a computer program. DNA is a computer program. So you can't have a computer program that got written by itself. It's like the ink falls on the paper, and all of a sudden you got Shakespeare. The ink, you take a disc on key and you throw it into an electromagnetic field, and all of a sudden it becomes an IBM computer program. It doesn't work like that. There has to be a designer. So the fact that we have DNA today and we've discovered the code of the DNA, so it's impossible not to believe in the Creator. Why don't they believe in a Creator? Why don't they believe in it? Why are they still denying it? Why are they still fighting it? So Rabbi Chanan explains there's a din of shoichad ma'aver eseinei chachomim. Shoichad, a person is the biggest chacham, but if he takes shoichad, it clouds his mind. Even a shava pruta. And the Kama Maisim in the Gemara, and there was a dayan here, and his worker brought him, I have a din Torah, but I brought you a gift, here's some fruit for Shabbos. He parceled himself from
that he used to bring every week.
Yeah, he was going to bring it in anyway, the Gemara Ksubis. He was going to bring it anyway, brought him a day earlier. Since that was a little bit of shoichad, so therefore he parceled himself from being a dayan, and he heard himself, during the din Torah, he heard himself thinking that, about how this guy could, taina and win the case. So shoichad, if shoichad can be mavir, can blind a person's mind, cloud a person's mind, so what about $10,000 or $20,000? Right? That for sure can cloud a mind. What about wanting to be a hefker, to live a life of hefkeris and not have somebody watching over you and spoiling all your fun and stifling your so Mamela, huh?
Respect.
Huh? Yeah, but right. So for sure they can't believe because it's going to spoil their hefkeris, the whole lifestyle. So therefore they have a sheikhad which is stopping them. But the basic yesod of Yetzias Mitzrayim, and this is what, going back to the chinuch that we mentioned. Why? The more you do it, the more you internalize it. Therefore, we mention Yetzias Mitzrayim every day, once, twice a day. We mention Yetzias Mitzrayim, and we do tefillin, and we do pigeon bechor, and how many mitzvahs are zechel Yetzias Mitzrayim, and then we have the climax, the Leil Seder, which is constantly Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Nate Nisim, that is Kosh Baruch Hu, the Hashgacha Pratis. The Hashgacha Pratis that we saw. And the Rosh says a very interesting, Zeh Skulas Yisroel. We have to realize this is a mitzvah only for Klal Yisrael. It's not a mitzvah. The Goyim, even though they have a mitzvah, they have to believe in a Kosh Baruch Hu. Not allowed to believe in one of the Zion mitzvahs, not to do Avodah Zorah. They have to believe in God. But Hashgacha Pratis, a goy is not mitzvah on. A goy is not mitzvah on, and Rav Chaim Friedlander says a very, very, very big chiddush. Not only a goy is not mitzvah on it, he's not mesugal to understand it. A goy is not mesugal, he doesn't have the ability to understand Hashgacha Pratis, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is everything. Like the Ramban said, I'll just end with this. The Ramban says, what is, at the end of Bo, what is the basic lesson? From understanding Hashgacha, Nisim Galuyim, from understanding Nisim Galuyim, then we understand that everything is a Nes. Everything a Nes, except the Yetzias Mitzrayim was a Nes Galui, but this table, this camera, everything in us, my body. That's a creation. I'm saying everybody, all of nature, food, everything that happens in nature, all the laws of nature are a Nes Nister. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running the world. And this is the lesson that we have to internalize and teach over to our children at Leil Seder. I'm wishing you a Freilich Yontif, right? Freilich Chag Pesach, Chag Kosher V'Sameach. And B'ez Hashem will continue after.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.